That is interesting. We have a charge under temperature protection here with one of the BMSs, because I have set the temperature to 20 degrees and we are just underneath this 20 degrees. So the BMS has actually turned off the charge MOSFETs, which is correct, but it is still reporting a charge current limit of 47.5 amps to the inverter. Guys, welcome back to the Off-Grid Garage here in gloomy, yeah, we've got very gloomy weather today. It's not great. At 27 amps outside, you're at 15% state of charge with the battery shelf. But we are still doing testing with the power of tower. Now I did it again. The tower of power. Okay, let me quickly bring you up to speed here. So at the moment I'm testing only these top two batteries, the 100 amp JK battery with the JK BMS and the 135 ampere hour Seplos battery with the JK BMS as well. And these are the only ones connected to our solar charge controller at the moment. So we are charging these two batteries from the tilt system. This one there, which is not getting much sunlight today. And this cabling looks so messy, it is unbelievable. Because I had to have longer connection cables from one battery to the other, and they also need to cross. So negative here is negative over there, positive, positive. Quick look, 1.2 amps going into this battery. This is still not working, right. And we also can see we've got the alarm here, the under temperature protection has kicked in. This was just a test I did. I wanted to see if the system shuts down altogether or if the JK BMS actually allowed charging for the other batteries. And it looks like with an under temperature protection, charge MOSFETs turn on for this one BMS. This is the top battery, but it still tells the inverter, hey, you can charge at 47.5 amps. So it only limits the current going into the battery because one battery is down, the other one is still charging. So that's all good. Charge under protection. Okay, so we set this one back to 0. Okay, and the recovery to 5. Okay, this should clear our overvoltage protection. I still have this PL module abnormal. This is the protection now. This is the power limiting module. Probably have to restart the whole BMS. Just let me turn it off for a moment. Okay, let's see what it says now after a restart. The good old restart has fixed it. So all these over current, over temperature, over voltage and under temperature situations, they seem to be work just fine with the JK BMSs. So it shuts down only this specific BMS, then reports this to the inverter slows down by the amount of the missing BMS, but keeps charging the whole system then. So that's pretty good. Okay, and now I want to show you something else. So this is the SPAT calibration center, obviously the Victron system where these two batteries are connected to. We can see the pull fence system here charging with 67 watts only in this gloomy weather. So around 70 watts are coming in, but only 30 watts are going into the batteries, right? So the master BMS reports both currents as a sum to the Victron system. And it reports we are charging with 0.8 amps only at the moment. So you would ask, where's the rest? Yeah, where's the difference going? Well, because we have two different systems here measuring current and power. We've got the pool fence MPPT charge controller on one side and the BMS is on the other side. And they are measuring differently. They never show exactly the same. But this is not the problem. Supplying 70 watts to the system, but they're only charging the battery with 30 watts, the rest must be a load. There must be something connected which consumes the rest of the power. And it should reflect this down here in the graph. We can only see the state of charge of the battery, which I have changed in the morning. That's why we have this steep drop. Because I disconnected all the other batteries, I'm only working with these top two batteries at the moment here for the ease of understanding the data. And we can see the solar is coming in, the 0.04 kilowatt hours, 0.1 kilowatt hour here, and this is still counting, 0.02 kilowatt hours. So this is all working, but there's no consumption. It doesn't show consumption. If we go quickly into the off-grid garage, there we can see a consumption during the night of the system, and then the solar kicks back in again. So we've got different heights of graphs there showing consumption and solar production. And if you have a look yesterday, you can see consumption, production as red and yellow bars. It doesn't do that here in the system for some reason. Now you could say, Andy, you have to turn on DC power as you have in your off-grid garage. DC power. You need to turn this one on. Yeah, so let's go into the Victron system, go to settings, go to the system setup, and we turn on has DC system. Okay, give it a few seconds. And there it comes, DC power. And now the whole equation does make sense again, yeah? We are supplying 70 watts to the system, 41 watts going into the battery, and the rest must be a load. DC power, 26 watts, that's the difference, more or less. So from now on, we should actually see a red bar coming up because the system now knows there is a load connected, which is a DC load, and it should give us a red bar showing the consumption, but it doesn't. If we have a look at yesterday, this was before I connected the tower of power. You can see we charged 1.8 kilowatt hours into the system and I had DC power turned on. I've just turned it off this morning to see if it makes any difference. It doesn't. If DC power is turned on or not, does make no difference at all. And you could say now, well, this is definitely a Victron problem. It is not that easy. Because if I connect the Seplos BMS instead of the JK BMS, for example, to the SPAT calibration center, the Powerball 2.0, with the Seplos BMS connected to the Victron system, it shows me red bars. It shows me the consumption. It would now start calculating these 47 watts as a load and shows me a red bar. But only with the Seplos BMS. It doesn't do it with the Tangaluma BMS and the QSO battery, it doesn't do it with the Pace BMS, and apparently it doesn't do it with the JK BMS. Okay, I've just turned on the Phoenix inverter now, this will kick in a second. And then we will see a AC load here as well, going from this battery into the Phoenix inverter, and this Phoenix inverter charges then the battery shelf on the other hand as a generator. Okay, it has now kicked in. We can see now an AC load of 1.2 kilowatts. And now you would say, well, this should give you now a red bar because now we've got an AC load connected. Don't know why it doesn't show anything here. It may take a moment. There we go. It's now kicking in. So 1 kilowatt of load, AC load, a bit of DC load. And the off-grid garage system here does a perfect job in adding my AC loads and my DC loads together and show this as the red bar here as a consumption. This works here perfectly fine with the smart shunt as the battery monitor. It also works perfectly fine with the PIDA boards as a battery monitor. Even if I disconnect the smart shunt completely from the system, pull out the VE direct cable, it still shows the correct consumption consisting of the AC load and the DC load. There's still no bar here. There's still nothing. Okay, I would say leave this running here for 5 minutes and then we should see a tiny red bar at least. The system would have accumulated enough data then to show a bit of a consumption in the graph. Okay, it is now 8 minutes ago and we have a look at the SPAT calibration center again. We are still discharging with 1.2 kilowatts around and there's no red bar for consumption, nothing. There's nothing showing up. So neither DC power nor AC power shows actually in the Victron system, but okay, let's turn off the Phoenix inverter for a moment. So the next test I want to do is I want to replace my whole battery shelf, all these batteries, with these two. Now guys, I'm not going to take these cells out here of the batteries, I'm just turning the whole battery shelf off and connect the tower of power instead. So only these two batteries. I know it's only 100 and 135 ampere hour battery here, but this gives us 235 ampere hour. That's not too bad. That's about 10 kilowatt hours or so. And with this weather outside, I'm not expecting big currents coming in today anyway. So it will be the perfect test. And we also want to connect the master BMS here and let the battery control the whole system. I've already connected the green cable with a joiner to this white cable, which comes very professional out of this box. And we plug this network cable into our master, disconnect the Powerball 2.0, and plug this one in. So now these batteries are connected to our system here. Let's log in Garage Peter boards. Here are the Peter boards. It's under device, Peter boards. Okay, what should we call them? Let's call them JK BMS. Okay, settings, system setup. So at the moment the battery monitor is the smart shunt, and we're going to change this one to the JK BMS on CAN bus. So it has already recognized the JK BMS. Boom! If we go back into the off-grid garage, we should see the JK BMS disappearing here. Yep, it has now. So now we are showing the data of the JK BMS. So we can see only the 0.8 amps coming in from the tilt system. And now the system assumes again we are charging from solar with 1.4 kilowatts, but we are only charging 1.2 in the battery. The rest must be DC power. Yeah, and it will now add this DC power down here and shows it as a consumption. But I want to go a step further. We want to go into the DVCC, which I have turned on only for sharing the voltage. And there's no BMS control. So let's make the JK BMS our responsible BMS. Done. Now the JK BMS is in charge of the whole system here. But we are still charging from the tilt system only. We turn on our outlet number 1 because this connects then these batteries or this system with this battery system together. And then these batteries are getting charged from our solar charge controllers here. Okay, turn this one on and have a look here in the off-grid garage system. We can see now 50 amps are going into these batteries. So, but now we've got all these batteries in parallel with these two. So we have to turn these ones off. We can either log into each individual BMS and turn off the charge and discharge MOSFETs, or here I'm just turning off all 3 battery banks. So they are completely disconnected, isolated. We are only running the whole show now from these 2 batteries. And we are charging with 29 amps now into these 2 batteries. The smart shunt is idling because there's no current going into these other 3 batteries anymore. It only shows us the percentage now, the state of charge, and the voltage it measures. But there's no current going in anymore. Okay, so let's leave this running for a couple of hours now. I want to see if the actual consumption chart here continues to build up over the rest of the day. And then it is now 10:30 in the morning, so give it 2 or 3 hours or so, and then we should have a result here, and we should see actually a consumption in terms of the red graph and the yellow graph for the solar. So is the JK BMS actually capable of running a whole Victron system correctly, showing the correct data? And because, as I said before, when I connect the Seplos BMS, for example, at least the version 1 and 2, I don't think it works with the version 3 as far as I can remember. So version 1 and 2 of the Seplos BMS report the data somehow differently to the Victron system than the other BMSs do. And only when the Seplos BMSs are connected, it shows the correct graph in the Victron system. So obviously the data the Victron system gets from the BMS is somehow different to all the other BMSs. And this is something which bugs me for years now, and I cannot figure out why that is. Is this a problem in Venus OS, or is it a problem of the BMS not correctly reporting the data? I mean, none of these BMSs we are connecting here is actually certified by Victron. They work with Pylon Tech and BYD and LG, BMS, whatever stuff there. So only a small handful of BMSs is actually supported, officially supported by Victron. None of these is, even they are working. But we maybe see the limitation now of these BMSs here when they work with a Victron system together. All right, guys, I'll do something else for the next couple of hours, and then I'm back here on the computer and we have a look at the data, what is coming in. Now we are getting 3.2 kilowatts from the solar system, and we are charging these 2 batteries with 51.6 amps. These are only 100 ampere hour batteries, you know, 50 amps going in, or 25 each. I have set the maximum charge current to 50 amps, so 100 amp maximum charge current into these batteries. just in case the sun comes out and it charges full power into this battery, we are limiting the charge current here. So from a safety perspective, it's totally fine to have a 16.4 something kilowatt peak solar system connected to these two 100 amp hour batteries only. The charge current is limited. Yeah, here you can see the charge parameters. 55.2 volts we are charging to, 95 amps is the maximum charge current for both batteries. We will never reach this today. Well, we've got only a 66 amp circuit breaker, so everything over 70, 80 amps or something, this will trip anyway. So I have to keep an eye on the load as well here. Not charging the vehicle, not turning on the pool pump at the moment. Just keep it a bit shallow with the load. So these two batteries, or better my circuit breaker here, can actually cope. So we are down to 48.6 volts with these two batteries already. I'm heating up the hot water now. It's 5:30 or so, but the battery gets really low. It still shows like 33% state of charge. Since I installed these two BMSs in these batteries, they have not been fully charged. So totally uncalibrated. What I will do now is I'll just turn on my other battery again. And this will bring additional power now into my hot water system and also charges these batteries, I think. Oh yeah, 38 amps going in. Nice. Otherwise, I'm running out of power very quickly then. Okay, let me have dinner first and then I'll show you the result of the... from what I found. It's interesting. Late night show. Welcome back, guys. All right, it is now shortly after 9 p.m. So this is like 5 hours ago since I left you in the last scene. And we want to have a look at the off-grid garage again and see how our JK BMSs in parallel do with the Victron system. As you have seen before, I had to turn on the battery shelf again because I was running low on voltage here. Even the state of charge shows 34%. We are at 50.6 volts, so this is very low. The smart shunt is far more precise. It predicts 8.3% at 50.6 volts as well. But state of charge is not our concern today. As I told you, these BMSs have not been calibrated. They don't know what 100% is. We want to have a look at this curve down here. So this morning, everything was normal for the battery shelf for the Victron system. So we can see here consumption and solar generation for each hour. And this was exactly until 10:30, when we made the JK BMS the controlling BMS for our system. From 10:30 on, the Victron system was listening to the JK BMS. So we cannot really see any difference to the hours before, but from 11 o'clock, we can see that. 12 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and 4 to 5. Yeah, very obvious, right? Consumption is exactly as high as solar. Solar goes down, consumption goes down. So why is this happening? I really don't have any explanation for that. This is just how the Victron system reacts to the JK BMS. And I've seen exactly this for many other BMSs before, but not for the Seplos BMS. The Seplos BMS shows us consumption and generation as they are in reality, but not the JK. For some reason, it stops working and shows us this shit then. Yeah, so unusable data. I assume the solar generation is correct because we had some thunderstorm coming in, heavy rain and wind after 3 o'clock, and this is exactly 4 o'clock here. 0.05 kilowatt hours we have made with solar, so that was really bad. 5 p.m. I changed the settings again and turned off the DC power. Yeah. At the moment, you can see we've got an AC load and we've got DC load here. This is something you can turn on and off in the Victron system. Depending if you have only an inverter connected to your battery, you don't need this. But because I have also load directly connected to the battery, yeah, we have got the 48 volt, 12 volt converter, the Orion DC converter, which supplies power to the network cabinet where the Home Assistant system runs and the PoE switch and all this other shit. This is running from pure DC. If I would turn off DC power, the numbers would not add up. Or if you have an inverter which is not a Victron one, as I have, I've got the Xia inverter running with an extension cable then back to the house, the Victron system doesn't know about it. So hence I have turned on has DC system. So as soon as I turned this off at 5 PM, when the hot water kicked in, for example, well, we can see it works again. Yeah, there was no solar generation anymore. This was after sunset already, and we had thick clouds anyway. But it measures the correct consumption again. Has DC power turned off? Correct consumption. I let this run for 2 hours, and spot on 7 PM, I turned on has DC power again. And as you can see from the dots here, we are now at 10 past 9. As soon as I turn on has DC power, there's no consumption anymore. See, the consumption totally disappears. There's no bar anymore. Even we still heat up the water, there's no consumption measured anymore. For whatever reason, it's not working. If I would have a Seplos BMS, a version 1 or version 2, it would work. If I can find this video again, I'll link it down below. But have a look at these Seplos BMS videos I made 1.5 years ago or something. Comprehensive videos about all the functionality of these Seplos BMSs, and we have tested this as well with the Victron system, and it was all nice and smooth. Pace BMS, Tabaluga BMS, and the JK BMS do this shit. They don't show any consumption if DC power is turned on. You could argue now, Andy, look, this is clearly a Victron problem now, because if you change the setting in Victron, it works or doesn't work. Well, not really, because as I just said, with the Seplos BMS, it works. With the Peter boards, it works as well. With the pure Victron Smart Shunt, it works as well. So some BMSs seem to supply data in a different way or no data at all in certain areas. And the Victron system can only mush this all together if all the data is there. If something is missing, it may not be able to display the consumption correctly. Of course, the Victron system should know what is the DC power, what is the AC power, all this kind of stuff. And it does. But for some reason, with certain BMSs, it cannot show that correctly. And I really have no explanation why this is. Is the issue with Victron? Is the issue with the BMS? I really don't know. This is only how far I have experienced it, what I'm sharing here. So if you are using the JK BMS at home with DC power turned on as well, not many will have that probably, but I would like to get some information from you about this consumption is the same as the production. For me personally, this is not super important anymore that this data is correct in the Victron VRM here, because I'm using the Home Assistant system more and more. And it doesn't matter what kind of BMS I'm using with Home Assistant, I'm always getting the correct data. But still, this is a feature or a bug or both maybe or something, I don't know, which I cannot explain why this is happening. I can only see the changes the graph tells me if I turn on and turn off certain features in the Victron system. And this totally depends on what kind of BMS I have connected. So there is certainly a correlation or a link between these two systems which is not working correctly, but neither BMS manufacturer nor Victron will do anything about it, because Victron says, well, this is a non-supported BMS. That's why we don't support this BMS maybe. Because the CAN protocol is not as clean as we need it. We don't get all the information to reflect all the data correctly in this graph. So something like this, I don't know. So yeah, guys, this was another test with the JK BMS and the tower of power over here, just using the two JKs at the top in the black cases there. But it was something I wanted to test because one of the options I have is to replace these two JK BMSs and the JBD in the top with 3 JK Inverter BMSs. Don't use the Peter boards anymore, just the JK BMSs, connect them all back to the Raspberry Pi running in here, the Venus OS, and everything is fine. But it is not. As you can see, it is not. At least not in the Victron VRM. The data is inconsistent, it is not correct, something is missing, something is not working correctly. So this was one of the tests I was really keen to do. But as I said, leave your comments down below if you have the JK Inverter BMS connected to your Victron system and also have a DC load connected to your battery. I would really like to hear from your experience. What are you seeing? Is your Victron VRM correctly displaying all this data? If you don't have any additional DC load or any non-Victron inverters connected to your battery, don't worry about it. The JK BMS works totally fine with the Victron system, delivers all the information, all the data, controls your system perfectly fine. Amazing. I like it. Jeez, and look at all this cable clutter here. Well, the cables will all disappear in the near future. Once we are proceeding with the garage transformation here, it will be a nice and clean setup. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all your great support. Welcome to all the new subscribers here. You have lots of videos to watch and catch up. Thank you to all my wonderful supporters. Leaving comments, liking the videos, sharing them in forums. And I've got also some people who are a bit more beautiful than everyone else because they are donating to the channel as well, buying me a beer from time to time. Thank you very, very much for that. And guys, until the next video when we do something completely different here on the channel. Yep, it will be completely different to what we did today. Absolutely. Until then, guys, you stay charged, stay safe, and thanks again for watching. See you then. Bye-bye. So, now I've got the problem. I need to get some juice into my system here. I know these 3 batteries are at 70%, so this will give me enough power over the night. And we are expecting sunshine again tomorrow here in sunny hot Australia. It is the start of winter today, actually. Wow. Yeah, I could really tell from the weather. So hopefully tomorrow we get some juice into the batteries again. But who knows? We will see. All right, until then.